pleasure to introduce to you number 7 here, which is the introduction of Miami Township Administrator James Brett and also the new fire chief in Miami Township. You would like to come forward and address the council, please.
So, excuse me for being a little slow, my back's a little racked, but thank you. Glad to be here this evening. Always good to come back. So, Chief Schumann, our new fire chief, been with us for a couple months now and doing a great job for us, and I think we'll be very pleased with him as we move forward.
Schumann, you're new fire chief. If there's anything, obviously between now and whenever, that I can ever be of any assistance to you guys, please don't hesitate to call or email or next time by the office after call. Like office or PD2, it'd be great.
Jim, I think you were here to sort of explain the $159,000, I believe, that you're going to be asking village residents to absorb.
Yeah, let me grab
An increase to what we currently pay with the contract.
So I don't know, did everybody get what we showed you at the mayor? No, sorry, wrong one. So let me share with you some information on the fire levy, the income that comes in from all.
I've never seen
Are we talking about Miami Township's fire levy?
Well, and because you contract with Miami Township in the past, they've always.
I got one, we gave it to you.
So,
it. Jim, is there an extra one you could pass around to the residents, or is that already on?
you can. Let me start this one here, and you guys can take a peek. Or left, we'll start a couple others. So I'm not sure how the original contract with the Village of Cleves and Miami Township worked, but when I came here as your fiscal officer, there was an initial contract amount that the village paid. And then in 2019, the township asked the village for an additional amount. They asked all 3 villages to contract with the township. And in looking at the amount that we paid, or that the village has paid, of the levy income that comes to the township either through the township tax levy or through the villages to the township. The village of Addison currently pays about 2%, village of Cleves pays about 11%, North Bend pays 8%, and Miami Township picks up the difference at 79%. So, in looking at our expenses moving forward, I know that you guys have dealt with employee costs and benefit costs and everything, so as we're moving forward, we're projecting the bottom of that first page. I highlighted the employee cost because the big cost right now and everything is what it takes to get quality people. So our projection for 2025 is we're going to have $2,800,000 in salaries. We're going to have about $1.5 million in benefits. Our total employee cost is going to be about $4.37 million. Our non-employee operating costs will vary on a year-to-year basis, depending on whether we have to replace a piece of equipment or something like that. We're projecting in 2025, we're going to spend $1.1 million in non-employee costs to operate the fire department. So our estimate for 2025 is it's going to too short. About almost $5.5 million to operate the fire department. 2026, we're looking at $5.7 million. In 2027, we're looking at almost $5.9 million. So the township funds the fire department through our contracts with you, through our levy, and then through our TIF funds that we receive from the county, from the taxpayers. So in looking at the cost, if we, what we're asking is an increase that basically keeps the percentages about the same. With the 2 mills that we're asking for each of the villages to pay, the increase would keep Addison at 2%, Cleves at 12%, North Bend at 8%. The township is going to ask for a renewal of a 3.5 mil existing levy, and also for 3 mills additionally. We looked at the money that comes in, and we realized this is a bad time to ask anybody for extra money. But in order to fund our fire department, we're going to have to come up with some extra money. The one thing we can't spend that TIP fund on is salaries. So if we bring in with the proposed revenue $3.5 million, 3.57, that'll get us probably through 27, 28 in salaries. Doesn't come near covering the salaries and benefits, let alone the full cost of operating the department, but it will help. And the chief can talk about staffing and things like that if you don't have any questions on that.
Love to hear.
So, but let me hit one more thing. Back on the last page. And this is something that I asked back when, in 2019, what volume of runs, what percent of the runs that the township makes to go to the villages? So in 2023, you can see the EMS runs, fire runs, and total runs. For Addison was about 12%, Cleves was about 20%, North Bend was about 6%, and the remaining 62% were in the township. So if you look at the total runs and divide it by the total cost, the bottom chart here, right below that runs by community, we take the total runs percentage, look at the cost. Addison has 12% of the runs, pays, and these numbers are rounded, so they pay about 1.5%. Cleves accounts for about 20% of our runs, and of the total budget, that $5 million number, you pay about 8% of that. North Bend has about 6% of the runs, they pay about 5% of the total cost. So the villages pay 14% of what it costs to run that fire department, and the township picks up the other 86%. So in keeping with what the finance committee at the township thought was fair, what the trustees thought was fair, they came up with that 2 mil number to ask for an increase from our contracts, and we're asking for our residents for a renewal of the 3.5 mils and 3 additional mils. So that's how the number came about.
Any questions, Councilman?
Yeah, you have a projected salary cost in 25 of $2,811,000 and benefits of $1,560,000. What are they this year? What did you budget for salaries this year?
Like 2.6 million.
2.6 million in just salary.
2.6, 2.7.
And how much benefit?
Probably right under that 1.5.
About 1.4, I believe.
Was it like?
So did you supplement any of your fire services at all in the past through your general fund?
Yes, a lot of our benefits were out of our general fund. Yes.
The general fund, TIF fund, we're gonna do a better job of separating those out so that we get a fire number. And Cindy and I have been talking about how we can do that, just so we know what the number is. We just would like it to be more accurate and the UAN accounting system, which is what you use here.
Yeah, when you talk about 2 mil though, I'm not so sure we'll put a 2 mil levy on. So when you talk to the village of Cleves, I wanna hear dollar amounts, because the mills are not the same. The mills are different in the village of Cleves and Addiston and North Bend and Miami Township. A mill is not a mill in all 3 communities.
Correct. So if you look at that front page, you'll see what, on the left-hand side, it shows you what the village is currently paying. And on the right-hand side, it's under proposed addition and renewal.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, the 2 mil addition would be, we're basically looking for $159,400. Now, if you choose to come up with that without putting a 2 mil levy on, that's certainly your choice.
Do you know what our current contract amount is?
Your current contract last year should have been $252,393. And just because I was here and know how this works, there's the initial contract, and then what was agreed upon back in 19 was whatever the 2 mills brings in, that goes to the township. So you pass the levy for fire service, whatever that 2 mills is.
2.5.
Yeah. So whatever
And we
that brings in
supplement
is
the
what you pay.
difference of that out of the general fund.
So your general fund, you'd be hard pressed to take it from any place else that I can think of.
Might be hard pressed taking it from the general fund,
But
Jim.
this,
I understand.
this 252 contracted rate, we take whatever we get from our 2.5 plus add the additional. You said that contract amount, we figure out how to pay whatever our fire levy doesn't bring in, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I wanna make sure, cause it sounded like you said, you guys get whatever the fire levy brings in. But the fire levy's not gonna come near bringing in
Yeah,
252, so,
It brings in $150,000 a year, so everything beyond that, okay, I think we paid $252,000. So we're already taking $102,000 out of our general fund.
to come up with the 252.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay, and that's what I thought.
And right now, what they're asking for is $159,400. I do have additional questions,
That's fine.
but.
That's 159 on top of
That's
what we're
not, that's
already.
correct.
Okay,
So I think we're going from, like you said, 252,394 to 411,000.
yeah, it's a pretty big increase
chunk.
in one pop.
Yeah. So is there a reason why you asked for 2 and not less? Or is that just because 2 was a good number?
Just in trying to keep that percentage that everybody was paying close to the same.
That's a forecast, you don't know if maybe our runs and so forth may go down. Have you seen where our runs have gone up, or if they've gone down, or they stayed the same?
I have not gone back and
Linda
looked at
should-
that since.
I had said that too.
Yes, no, they've been pretty consistent. The
They
run
were
totals
fairly
haven't
consistent in
changed over the
19,
last
we
5
looked
years.
back, and I think Cindy gave us 4 years, 5 years of history back then.
So if
And
we've been consistent. we have
Consistent.
double almost our cost for that somewhat.
because the cost of operations have increased as well.
So it's not potential staffing increases you're not looking at this point, are you?
Now, you wanna explain where we wanna be with staffing and how we wanna.
Sure, so right now, we either operate at 9 people, which is 3 folks at each station, or,
24/7.
correct, everything's 24/7. Or we can go up to 12 people, max. And that was before I got here. I've asked for 1 more additional person to make it 13. If the budget allows, it doesn't mean it's even going to allow it. So we have 25 full-time folks employed now. We have slotted for 30, we have 5 open spots, and then the rest of the staffing is supplemented by part-time staff. So that's kind of how we staff and we operate based on that. So the salary numbers are based on the 30 full-time staff that was approved, or whatever that was. I think it's been for a while, to be honest. We're just down 5 full-time folks.
Okay.
The finance
So
committee
this-
and the trustees agreed to allow the fire department to go to 30 people in December last year.
So what happens if the levy you guys are hoping to put on, the additional 3 mil, what happens if your residents don't vote that levy?
And we have basically the money to operate next year. And between now and the end of next year, we've got to show the people the need for the levy. And if they choose not to give us that money, then we look at the chief and go, we're gonna have to close stations, we're gonna have to cut back. Maybe we don't get that new light squad, and we run the one that's, gonna cost more in repairs, and we start spending money. Good money after bad is what I refer to it as, when you start spending more on your units than what it costs to buy a new one. You're really wasting taxpayers' money. We don't wanna get there, and we think that we can explain to the folks the service that we're gonna give them.
So
We hope they support that.
this projected increase though is based on projections, correct? On the possibility of an increased person or, I mean, if you're projecting out, are you projecting on increased staff?
I
Just
believe
going to the,
the
if we
staff
go
is,
to the 30.
the staff has already been approved, so we're going to do that unless. the
Unless you
budget is
can't
approved.
afford to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that's really, that's where I feel like we need to be, to have adequate staffing, so that right now, if we've got 3 people at a station, 2 people go on the light squad run, you've got 1 person who can drive to that next incident, but 1 person can't do a whole lot. So,
Yeah, I'm just, in my mind, I'm just trying to figure out, this is a big increase for the
It is.
village of Cleves. And,
For all.
yeah, but I have to be concerned with the village of Cleves.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
how it affects our budget and our finances and our ability to stay in business as the village of Cleves, because we couldn't get a general fund levy passed the last 3 times we tried. So that concerns me. You know, we're right now, working to see how the reevaluation and how all of that stuff affects us financially, which we won't know until we get our second disbursement, and then we can get a clear picture. And I'm just, in my mind, I'm just trying to justify $160,000 for the village of Cleves is a lot of money, and it probably isn't as much to Miami Township.
It's a lot of money to anybody.
Okay, I'm
You know,
just,
I look at it like my household budget. You know, if I'm gonna ask for that percentage of increase, you know, if I wanna go out and buy something for the garage, you know, and I have to go tell my wife, oh yeah, I'm gonna spend that. I'm at a disadvantage because my wife's dad was a carpenter. So when I go out and buy a tool, she knows what it's for. So she knows if I really needed it for a project or if I wanted it. So, and there's a big difference between need and want, and we're not asking for wants, we're asking for needs. So we can have all the great equipment in the world, if we don't have anybody to use it, it's just gonna sit in the garage and not do us any good. So what we need, Jim's opinion, and I think the chief will agree with me, we need good quality people. We've increased our pay to be more competitive with our neighbors so that we can assist people.
I relate to that.
The other problem that, if Terry was here, she would tell you, Cleves, Whitewater, North Bend, Addison, Miami Township, we were always the area where people came to work because we have a lot of variety of runs. And as soon as they got 6 months of experience, Delhi and Green, you know, those people
Because
would,
they can afford to pay more.
yeah, they
Better
would,
benefits.
yeah, they have better pay, they have better benefits, and if you're paying somebody $10 an hour and they get a $1 raise, that's a big percentage for them. So we've gotta be more competitive.
This 3 mil additional for you guys, do you know in dollars what that will mean to your residents and their tax bill? Have you done that
Yeah, we
figure?
did that today.
I think it's $100,000.
$100,000 and $35 a mil. So, what was it, $100?
$115 per,
Yeah, on $100,000.
That's what that increase would be.
yeah.
Because I'm just wondering how that would relate to the increase for Cleves.
So the increase we're looking for, Right now, the village, or the township brings in $1,776,000, and our increase would bring us to $2,799,000, basically $2.8 million.
Which doesn't come close to the $5,889,000 you say you need.
No. Again, because the trustees in the past, when it was available, were bright enough to tip basically the entire township. They were one of the last ones who got that done, and because they were smart enough to do that, the township is fortunate enough to have that extra money so that we don't have to look at you and say, well, you have 20% of our runs, we want 20% of that $5 million. And there's no way that the village please could afford that.
Could I ask some questions on your staffing? How many are you planning to staff at Station 69?
3.
Okay, so if you have 3 at Station 69 and 1 is sick, what do you do with that station?
We do our best to backfill it. If not, if it's during the week,
You're not gonna close it down. In other words, you won't ground it out.
as of right now, we haven't, no.
Now, I'm just asking a question. If you're planning on doing 3 at 69 and there's a firefighter who's sick, you're not gonna send it out with 2. So what are you gonna do? Are you pulling somebody from another station? How are you gonna manage that with 3 at 69?
Actually, just the other day, we ran with 2 people there because somebody called in sick and we couldn't fill it with overtime.
So did you send it out with just 2 people?
The
Did you
ambulance,
send an engine out with just 2 people on the fire truck?
if the fire call would have came out, they would have, yes.
I always had heard that that was a safety issue.
Oh, it is, for sure.
And that in the past, and I've attended almost every Miami Township trustee meeting over the last 3 years. And they've always said, we're not gonna send it out. We'll just have to ground it out and they'll have to reroute it. How many are you planning on having at Station 7?
I guess it depends on our staffing levels.
I've heard.
If we're fully staffed, 5.
And what about 68?
Same thing, if we're fully staffed, 5.
Okay, so we're gonna do 5, 5, and 3. And are there any plans to add additional administrative? Currently, you have an assistant chief that doesn't go out on runs. I know in the past, the fire chief of Miami Township has gone out on runs. Is that your plan? Is you gonna go out on runs too, or are you an administrative chief?
I've already been on runs, so if I'm around, I'm a firefighter at heart, I go on wherever run, road,
I'm
road and EMS call.
Just asking the question.
No, sure.
What's the plans with your captains? Are they gonna stay captains, or are they gonna be battalion chiefs or deputy chiefs or anything? Is there any plans along those lines?
So right now, they're gonna stay captains. I think, depending on what happens in the future would be to make them, district chiefs is what they use here in Hamilton County. Which would allow for upper movement throughout the department too, but all that's just talk at this point, depending on, and there's a lot of factors that come into that.
I'm just wondering
When
if
they're
any
ready.
of these factors are adding into the cost factors that you're adding in here. And the other question I guess I have is, I heard at one point in time, Miami Township is going to have to put on a general fund levy in 2016, I think 2026, I'm sorry. Because of the $500,000 they're gonna lose from the power plant. And if I've done my research correctly, your general fund levy, I don't think has been raised in 54 years, and it's a 0.46, I believe. And so, what's the plans there? Are you gonna continue to pay your healthcare and benefits out of the general fund, or are you guys planning to protect the general fund, which is what the village of Cleves has to do? We gotta protect our general fund. And this may or may not be how you're looking at it, but I know how I'm looking at it for our residents. As Linda said, we've had 3 straight levies fail. we had a you should know this better than anybody, Jim, $330,000 we lost in 2021, we had not recouped that. So, our general fund is in trouble. And we gotta do all our roads out of our general fund, or we gotta do loans. So, our situation is vastly different than Miami Township's. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay our firefighters, I get the importance of being competitive, but we're trying to stay in existence. And I'm concerned with the amount of money you guys are asking for, because I don't know that this village can afford it. I don't know if there's any comments on council about that or not, or from the audience.
I'll throw in the fact that, again, with our three failed levies in the past, right now, the way inflation is, we gotta review our police contract. And while there may be a potential savings there, we gotta look in the future. And I just looked at this is a 63% increase, and you're telling me our runs are inconsistent, or consistently stayed flat, but you're gonna ask for 63% more money for the same amount of runs. And I hear your chief say, well, if the money's there, we're gonna increase their salaries just for be able to have upward mobility, not so much any more service, but I just think it's very hard to swallow to come to Cleves and say, well, we're gonna have, give you a 63% increase when we're not doing any work for you. And again, I'm saying, not so much that we don't pay our firefighters, I agree that that's a necessity, but how many battalion chiefs or district chiefs do you want? If you're the chief, so to speak, and then you have all these other things under you, so to speak, and you're only staffed with how many? 30? And supplementing them? 10% is all administrative to some degree?
So I think what the chief said, and maybe I misunderstood it, but that talk about captains moving up is not something in the near future that I've
But he
seen.
said it was dependent on where the money was, so.
Yeah, so on down the line, obviously the mayor's correct. Duke Energy's closing the Miami port is gonna take a hit. We're doing our best to be preemptive and trying to get something to replace that. We've had talks with the Port Authority and how we might be able to repurpose that site, and, it's a site that offers a lot. So I think that we'll find something to go in there. I don't think that we'll be able to replace the entire amount that, power generating station pays, but, we're not sitting around waiting for that to go away. We're gonna be proactive on that. And there's all kinds of rumors out there about what that property may become. We just wanna make sure that whatever it becomes is something that provides jobs for our residents, that's hopefully safe and clean, and generates good income for the community. I think we'd be bad stewards if we weren't already looking at that.
Can I ask you?
I just-
Go ahead.
Does Miami Township, or how much does Miami Township get in grants?
I can't answer that.
I'd say 50 to 100,000 a year.
Fire grants,
Yeah, fire grants. It goes to equipment or,
that's what most
Yeah.
grants. Very few will
or
pay salary.
trauma, right,
So, and then,
they do bring in money for EMS billing, about 300,000 a year for EMS billing.
I'm still on clarifying questions, so we can dial back the intensity for a couple of questions. I still don't understand some of the things that are in front of me here. Thing number one, page 3, the bottom figure, percent of total cost. Where does that come from? It doesn't seem to be represented that same way elsewhere in my spreadsheets.
it's not, and when I realized I didn't, I had done the cost, I'd done what the levy brought in the percentages of that, but I had never sat down and figured out number of runs, percentage of runs that we make in each of the villages, and what that percentage is of the total cost of running the department. So, actually, it's the percentage of your contribution to the total cost. So, when I take the proposed total from page one of, 411,794, I think that as a percentage of 500, or 5,400,000,
I don't copy.
it comes out to 8%.
When you take the 400 what?
Okay.
481,
I put this together last minute.
this one?
Yeah, okay, just what we're asking from the village.
You take the total, that's your, so we need a header here, this is asked of village. You take the 411,794,000 that we're asking Cleves to provide.
Then we take the total operating cost for next year, and it works out about the same for the next 3 years. That's 5,400,000. We're asking you to pay about 8% of the total cost of operating the department.
That's more than, right, Cleves is 12%,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Oh, no, percent of total cost, I see.
Further questions on the levy things, because, okay, and so 411 divided by one of these things is gonna give me my 1, my 8, or my 5. But that's not on a, you're not breaking out the cost of individual runs compared to the overhead of running a fire department, or you're just saying, of the bottom line figures, or top line figures,
Right.
this is,
If you pay that much money, you're paying for 8% of the cost of that department.
so percent of total cost asked for.
And when I think that,
So what you're trying to represent there is that each of the villages is getting a value where they're incurring 12% of the runs, 20% of the runs, 6% of the runs. The township claims to be asking for only 1%, 8%, or 5%. In each case, it's a discount as a ratio of the measurable part of your operations, which is the runs.
right,
Right?
and
So I understand what those columns are now, and why you would assemble them that way. My next question is going back to the first question of what is the definition of a mill? So here in red, you have 2 mil new, 2 mil new, 2 mil new, and each of these is, I don't think that this is a Miami Township mill, because it represents an 83% increase in requested funds from Addison. 83% for them, 63% for Cleves, 52% for North Bay, which puts us in the middle. I suppose we shouldn't fuss compared to Addison, but what mill are you using there? Is it each village's mill? And
each village bill that was provided to Cindy by the Hamilton County Auditor is an estimate.
so you're asking each community to put on,
Based on the.
I can't justify that as a, like, I mean, I don't wanna talk us into a further request of Cleves here, but why would you ask for 2 mills straight if we're, like, what shouldn't it be a ratio of their runs, or if you're trying to keep things comparable to how things have been operating, you know, wouldn't you ask for the difference that makes Addison continue to pay 1%, Cleves 8%, and North Bend 5%? Why would you peg it to a mill, which is so variable?
Because if you look at that front page on the left, the current levy income, and that's just percent of levy income that they're providing, and you're providing, and North Bend's providing.
And I don't think that's the right term either. I think that's the percent of funded contributions. But we can clarify that if I'm incorrect. Go ahead.
So currently, the total amount of revenue that comes to Miami Township from the 3 villages and the township levy, $2,258,485. take the percentage of that on the contributions that the villages are making. It's 2% for Addison, 11% for Cleves, 8% for Northville.
And
So
what you're trying to,
we're just trying to keep it close to the
That's
same
what-
percentage.
is that
that you're
limited to
contributing.
funds that come from our levies that are dedicated to this purpose? Or is that,
You're paying part of what you're paying already is coming from your general fund.
right, so it's those dollar amounts that they don't actually have any relationship to the levies. So having the term levy on here is not,
Confusing.
it's just a little confusing. So it's the wrong term, that's fine, so long as we're clear. And so, you do have the Miami Township levies broken out, those are presumably, accurate for those levies. You don't have Miami Township general fund on this spreadsheet. So, but I think we already asked that question. Okay, clear on terminology there. Back to why would you make it 2 mils?
Again, to try to keep the current percentage of funds coming in from the contracts, let's call it contracts rather than levies. And however that gets there, currently, you're paying about 11% of what comes to the township for your contract.
But it's
versus
not
what we-
all fire levies, some of it's general.
Some of it is your general fund, yes. Yes,
So
very
the
well.
number you're trying to keep constant is the 2%, the 11%, the 8%.
Correct.
And so you're just multiplying that, and so, okay, so let me trace your thinking. I think the 2 mils bit is, I think it must have been shorthand for what you were discussing. I don't think it's accurate. I can still be wrong. So you wanna take the 2%, the 11%, the 8%, multiply that times the new higher cost.
We're just trying to keep it in line with what the township is receiving in levy funds.
Okay, you want to retain a total of, what is this, 21% covered by the villages
21, 22, yeah.
in the same ratios at the new expense, and therefore distribute that difference back to us. But you've not done that in the correct ratio of what we're currently doing. So Addison's getting the raw end of this deal, North Bend's getting a nice deal. The way that I read it, in that.
Because of their tax base.
So,
Because 2 mils for them brings in a lot more money than 2 mils
for
per,
Cleves,
per household, I guess.
But
Does that make any sense?
Don't forget the ability to pay for housing too.
so we really shouldn't, that's where these mills is so confusing, because
But you put the wrong ratio in by sticking to mil, like you
yes,
said.
yes,
So I want you to look at your analysis, like, if we need to sit down with this, that's fine, but like, I think you've done it. I don't think you've achieved what you said you tried to do. So, like, if you want to distribute new costs
It'll
of
be up next.
adding these red numbers together of about 300 some thousand that we're asking for new, right? So 290,000. And if you want to distribute those and I'll get out a pencil and paper too, I'll check mine. But I think if it's a ratio, then the ratio should be the same. Like if we have a 10% increase because there's a 10% increase in the budget, then Addison should have a 10% increase and North Bend should have a 10% increase. That's the back of the envelope that registers in my mind. And this absolutely doesn't meet that. I could be making an error somewhere else, and I'm done making the point. You
I
can
think
vote
you're
if you
right.
want.
You know what, I'm planning to get Cindy, you together,
Okay.
we'll figure it out. And
I'm not sure that's gonna go better for Cleves.
let me just say one thing, and it has nothing to do with the current council, but in 2019, when the township came to the village and said, we want 2 additional mills, or 2.5. It was understood then, and those people are gone, that the increase would always be in mills, because that's how they were gonna fund it. So, part of what the township was working with, and this is, I was here in 19, not there. So, that's why the whole thing starts with mills. Because they wanted to, they didn't want us to come to Cleves and say, and keep in mind, I was here, so I was on the Cleves side of it. We didn't want them coming to Cleves and saying, we want 1.25 mils from you, we want 1.75 from Addison, we want 2.25 from North Bend. They wanted to make sure that the millage was the same across the board. Now, that makes,
So it started off not really a
Yeah,
fair
it was-
system.
when I was the fiscal officer here, I'm like, that's a flawed way of looking at it. But it kind of made sense, because then they could go across the communities and say, we're asking for 2 mills.
But you don't get the same amount of money out of 2 mills from each community.
I realize that, that's why I said, I'm not saying it wasn't a flawed system, but that was the system, and that's why it's here, I think.
Well,
So, it's my understanding, that's why it's here.
I think
So,
any decision to
here's
go
where-
on a ballot with a millage to ask residents to increase their taxes, that decision's gotta be made at this level. And that can't be affected by something that was made 5 years ago.
You know, and I would hate to say it. You could go to your folks and say, I want a 5 mil general operating levy, and we're gonna pay this out of that, and the rest of it, we're gonna make sure that John has money to do the streets and all these things, and 5 mil levy can be tough right now.
Especially in the presidential year.
So, well,
Well, we won't go this year.
so,
I don't want, I don't wanna speak for council, but we got a long agenda here tonight. I think we sort of got information we need, I know we're gonna have to discuss it more. You've got another one to go, but I've got a resident back here who came here almost, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, wanting to talk to our council, and I wanna give her that opportunity. So if there are any more questions from council, please ask it now, otherwise.
set up a time to get him, Cindy and I, and the chief, if we need him. We're always glad to do that.
I will just say, I wanna say this has nothing to do with my appreciation for the service that Miami Township is providing village residents.
I agree.
Top notch, and I'm not dissatisfied with that at all, and I just wanna make that clear. That any concerns I have are of a financial nature only.
I certainly understand that, and we're getting, the goal is to get the top-notch people, keep them here. You know, we want our department to be the very best it can be.
And we want the same, but we also wanna survive, Jim.
You know my background, I grew up in E-Town, for those of you who don't know me. I played ball at Harmony Fields, I shopped at Merrill's, and Cleves has always been a part of my life. And, you know, I certainly don't want to see anything happen to this village, or any of the villages here.
It won't be in the best interest of Miami Township if that happens. That's all I can tell you.
Well, I just, for
Or
me,
our residents.
it's the identity.
Okay.
You know, I identify with Cleves, you know, Whitewater has Miami Town. Everybody knows where Miami Town is, but it's different than being a village.
We got one more thing for you after our public speech.
I'm glad to let her,
Yeah,
Thank you for your time
yes, thank you.
thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
and your service. We just really appreciate it.
We want to